Good morning. Um, Comfort and peace among the chaos. When we think about the Apostle Paul, we don't think about someone having an easy life. There's a person who was blinded before they received the gospel. There's a person who was stoned almost to death. He was persecuted. He was run out of a city, and a lot of the times he was smuggled out of the city for his own safety. One of those instances happens in Acts chapter 19 and 20. Paul, if you don't remember, as we've been studying the book of Acts on Wednesday nights. On Acts 19, Paul is in Ephesus and he delivers this message, and the whole city goes into a riot uh, because the Jews don't like his message because it's a popular one amongst the Gentiles, and the Gentiles don't like the message because it belittles their gods. Um, so, so when we go to Acts 20, we read that from Ephesus he goes to Macedonia, then he goes to Greece, and eventually he ends up in Philippi, where Paul and Luke take a boat out to Troas. When he gets to Troas, Luke writes that they wait there for a week, so that they're able to break bread with the brethren in Troas. Uh, we know from the rest of the chapter that Paul had been wanting to go to Jerusalem and get there, and he's been warned by the Holy Spirit and by many of his brethren that his safety was not guaranteed in Jerusalem. So, from Paul's perspective, behind him in Ephesus, there was chaos, and in front of him in the future in Jerusalem, there was chaos. And then here he is in Troas in chapter 20, verse 7, breaking the bread and partaking of the Lord's Supper. And this is the comfort and the peace that God provides amongst the chaos for his believers. Which reminds me of a story in the Old Testament when the Israelites were in between all this chaos. If you remember back to the book of Exodus, you have the Israelites having just escaped Egypt, and as they travel through, they end up at the Red Sea, and it's a dead end for them. Not after, just a little after that, the Egyptians realize that their workforce is gone, and here comes the greatest army of the time, following and pursuing the Israelites. So the Israelites, in front of them is the Red Sea, a dead end is chaos, and behind them, the Egyptian army, chaos. But what happens? God provides an escape. God parts the Red Sea and provides comfort and peace amongst the chaos. Now, coming back to the New Testament, we get letters and we get epistles such as First Peter, which is written to Christians who are being persecuted, who are scattered around the Roman Empire. And Peter in his first letter, he writes to stay being a good Christian amongst the chaos, amongst the persecution, amongst the suffering. And James also repeats this in his epistle, and he encourages the reader to consider suffering as joy. The life of the child of God is not guaranteed to be an easy one, and is not guaranteed to be a safe one. This is demonstrated time and time again in our Bibles, which is why God set up a system in which his people have comfort and peace among the chaos. If you go back to that first century Christian and you put yourself in that person's shoes, right? Whether you were a Jew or a Gentile, you did almost the same thing. You gave up the thing which you grew up believing in. A lot of times you gave up your businesses, your business partners, your family. A lot of times you also gave up your career, all because you believed in the gospel and now your future is uncertain. What not uncertain in the near future, but in the far future, but in the near future, and uh, and now you lost all these things. You accepted the gospel, and now you're also expected to go and spread the news and the gospel to people that you don't know how they're going to react. Right? You might spread the gospel to someone, and they might believe, or sometimes they won't believe, and you don't know if they're going to just go about their day, or you don't know if they're going to get offended and then get violent with you. That is what the first century Christian uh, dealt with on a daily basis. And then you think about that same person coming together on the first day of the week to their church building, to a home where they're surrounded by other Christians, and then they get to partake of the Lord's Supper. Can you imagine how comforting that would have been after a whole week of, I don't know if you're going to be violent to me, I don't know if I'm going to be persecuted today. On this Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon, whenever they met, they were just, finally, I don't have to look over my shoulder. Finally, I can hang around with people with the same mentality as me, that went through the same thing that I did, that I went through this past week. At least they'll know that Mike over there won't persecute them, and they also had the same week that they did. The closest to that feeling that I've had was when we had our first baby, our only baby, actually. When our baby was born, he had a tongue tie and a lip tie, so he was losing a lot of weight at the beginning. So for the first 10 days, he kept losing weight and dropping weight, and to the point that we had to go to the pediatrician twice a week for those first 2 weeks. And we just saw the scale go from when he was born 7 pounds and 13 ounces all the way down to 6 pounds and 12 ounces. Finally, we had his lip and his tongue released. And the minute or the day that we weighed him and the scale went up, I could finally feel like, now I can breathe. Now I can breathe. That was the closest that I would ever get to what the first Christian got to experience on the first day of the week. But that's what God provides you right here, right now. Most of us aren't persecuted nowadays, but chaos still surrounds us. Maybe yesterday you had a bad shift, or maybe yesterday you went through some family drama, or you received some bad news, or you dealt with some chronic pain. And maybe tomorrow you'll have a bad shift again. And maybe tomorrow you go through more family drama, or you will receive more bad news, or you will deal with more chronic pain. You can be glad then that today, right here, right now, you get to partake of the Lord's Supper. And the chaos that surrounds you right now is God providing you with comfort and peace. This is only 10 minutes of our morning. It's a reminder of that our life keeps going. It's a comfort and joy that God provides amongst our chaos. And it's a promise that although this is temporary right now, one day the comfort and the joy and the peace will be forever.